Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome back to yet another Zeebear's Endgame Dream Realm boss guide. So we are finally at the part of the season where we reach the endless mode for the boss. So a whole series of endless guides in the next few days. And for today's video, before we start, I think some of you guys might be wondering what levels you will need to hit the endless mode. So this is my free-to-play account. We just reached the endless mode today. So we climb all the way from the hell all the way to the next difficulty and then the endless mode. So based on these numbers over here, I'm expecting you to at least need around 660 plus to 670 plus for you to hit the endless dream realm bosses. So that will be the benchmark for the end game levels itself. And obviously as you progress higher in the levels, you get like higher levels in your artifact, you get more damage off them, you get more stats. And higher levels also gives you better equipments, right? Because equipments go all the way to level 800. So based on your equipment level, based on the time you're watching this video and your levels itself, your damage variations will be different. So in today's video, I'm going to use my free-to-play account to showcase the team I'm running with this free-to-play account. And I'll showcase my main account where I feature a few different teams and compare the damage variances for you guys to see the different team possibilities later on. Okay, so for this Stomper boss, in terms of mechanics, I'm not going to cover too much. The most important thing for Stomper, right, in terms of the mechanics is to take note of the silence. So this silence basically only allows you to use your skill at a fixed period of the battlefield, right, depending on the timer set here. So right here it summons a blizzard in 10 seconds, 40 seconds, and 70 seconds into battle. So there's a 10 seconds frame on the 30th second mark, as well as a 60th second mark for you to cast your skills, right? So technically a global silence for an extended period of time. So units which are generally not so reliant on their skills will be appreciated for this boss. You also want units that are able to help break the prison from this Yeti cell ability, because this prison basically prevents your main carry, your highest damage dealer, from doing anything. So you want to break them free as fast as possible, and this allows you to actually survive and do damage with your carry, because this deals a lot of damage if you are not able to remove it quickly, and slows down your DPS if your carry gets held in place for way too long. So that's the main part about this boss that you need to take note of. So without further ado, let's go into the battle. Let's showcase the team I'm running. So for myself, I'm actually running this team setup over here. So Lily May needs no explanation, one of the best carry in the game and still one of the strongest, even moving towards the endless stage. So she's a magical attacker that stacks up a lot of attack, and she has the ability to actually use her skills because she has unaffected, right? She's able to cast the ultimate even during the silence. If she's able to defensive stance, gain the invincibility, when she comes back, she got this iframe, she's able to cast the ultimate, and then she's gonna do the cycle again, right? So that's how Lily May is one of the best carry for this boss. And then Reina obviously for the debuff, for the factional bonus, as well as sending one unit in. So in my case, the unit that I send in is Mikola, because Mikola right here is one of the best buffer in the game. If you do have her as Supreme Plus, her Courage Veil, which is the ultimate, will be a permanent skill, which means that once she gets the first cast off, she doesn't rely too much on the casting of the ultimate, right? For her honor arena itself, as long as she exists on the battlefield, as long as you have more units onto the battlefield compared to your enemy, which is going to be the case for the whole battle because of the boss staying on one side of the battlefield, Mikola's arena will also permanently buff your team itself. So that's why Mikola is the better buffer for this boss over Smokey, obviously, because Smokey needs to channel the skill and cast the skill. So during the silence itself, the only thing that I think Mikola is affected is actually the heal itself. So in this case, we are using Coco to give us that damage reduction as well as attack boost in the event if the boss hits too hard. So later on, as we go up in terms of levels and we get like more defenses or even more HP off our equipments and levels and stuff, and we can survive better, then I will choose to remove Coco or Mikola, but most of the time will be Coco, because Coco is more for the defensive side. So in this case right now, we need the additional damage reduction to survive, so we're using Coco. But if you don't need Coco, then you can replace Coco with another debuffer, for example like Torrent, right? So in this setup, I'm actually using Coco and Mikola, and I'm sending Mikola in because my Mikola is the weakest unit in this squad right now. And sending her in with Reina with the EX weapon 10 has this damage reduction effect. So my Reina right here is this charm combination as well as EX weapon level 10. So we have this massive damage reduction, which help Mikola, who is standing on the front line, tank better, because the boss also have some melee attack like the snowball toss as well as the frosty breath. So frosty breath actually hits really high in the front line, so that's why we need that damage reduction. So combine that damage reduction from Reina as well as Coco when she casts her ultimate, Mikola is able to stand on the front line to actually buff up the team. So what happens here is Melee May will actually move in front and she will stand within the AoE of the Courage Sphere to get buff. For OD's case, I'm using OD because usually what will happen is you want to let Mikola walk in front and you send in OD, so this way OD will also benefit from the buff. But for my case, because my Mikola is a little frail, right, what happens is when I send my Mikola in unprotected, she will actually melt halfway into the battle, which is what I don't want. So that's why I'm sending her in with the Reina buff and I'm putting OD at the back line as the carry. So there's another way to play around this, and that is to send in OD, right, and then we protect our Mikola together with Torrent. So you can link Torrent to Mikola, and this way Torrent will take some damage for Mikola, and that way Mikola can survive better. Torrent also has this debuff ability, which is actually going to be pretty helpful most of the time because the boss will be silenced and Torrent will just be normal attacking, so he will be able to prot this debuff quite consistently. So this is the two ways to build this team. So I'm going to showcase my first team damage first, and then we'll do the Torrent one later on. So the artifact of choice will be Arcane Spell for this one, because we have a whole bunch of magic damage dealers with Lily May as well as OD. So this will proc this additional damage and also give the magical defense down for even more damage for the team. On top of that, this artifact also has attack, defense, penetration as well as defenses. So haste in this case is also important, but because we are not going to use our skills as often because of the silence, I think haste in this boss specifically is not as OP as it should be against every other bosses. Okay, so now let's start with the Coco one. Okay, so let's start the battle. Okay, so you guys can see me sending in Mikola, and then Lily May will actually walk up to the front line, and then right, Mikola will be able to buff her up. So between Lily May and OD, both of them will be snowballed, prisoned by the boss. So this will also force Mikola to run back and reposition herself in a better spot so that the aura can actually benefit Lily May most of the time and other units. So sometimes the position of Lily May could also be a little bit haywire, and then she won't get the buff from Mikola, or maybe Mikola's positioning can get haywire. So there's a little bit of RNG factor there, but this arrangement is pretty consistent in terms of buffing the team. So right here, I think our dear Lily May is not haste buff yet. Okay, the Courage Sphere is down. Okay, so this is my team, 25 billion with this free-to-play account. Okay, damage distribution, as you guys can see. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on to the next variant, which is using Torrent as a frontliner. So what happens is I'm going to send in OD. Okay, so this one has a risk where OD might not survive, right? But I think this way it will garner more damage, because by sending OD in, we will have more units benefiting from Mikola's aura, and that's where we will be able to perform better, right? Once you have more damage buffs on your important units. Okay, so let's start this battle. So this is without Coco. So by sending OD in, right, more units will be able to benefit from the Courage Sphere, from the ultimate. So OD benefits from it, Torrent benefits from it. Mikola didn't really position herself in the most optimal position for Lily May. So I think if you are trying to use this build, you want to try to make this build work, then you might want to try to reposition Mikola and Torrent combo differently to see whether or not she can actually go in a more optimal position to hit Lily May with the Courage Sphere. Okay, so right here, as you guys can see, even being linked to Torrent, Mikola still died. So for me specifically, I chose the Coco option because of this issue, right? So depending on your levels, depending on how well you survive, you make the necessary adjustments. So we are still really close in terms of damage in comparison to the other run. But for the other run, I think the damage is a lot higher, and I'll say it's more consistent because Torrent together with Mikola, right, doesn't ensure my Mikola survive to the end, whereas this one, it does survive. And if you do have Mikola at Supreme Plus, right, her sphere will be permanent. So you want to keep her alive for as long as possible so that the buff is consistently on as many targets as possible. So that's for the free-to-play account. Okay, so right here we're on my main account and I'll be showcasing 2 to 3 teams, right, with a little bit of idea differences for you guys to see what are the team options for you guys. And I'll also do the runs to showcase the damage difference with the exact same account. So I have a few records right here, experimented a little bit with different team combinations, namely the physical and magical one. So without further ado, let's go into the team setup. So the very first one, which is the strongest team setup shared by my friend over here, is one consisting of Lily May as well as OD, and then we have Brian for the debuff as well as the magical damage. Brian is also a unit that helps to break your units off the prison, so this helps you increase your damage while relying on the arcane spell for additional damage as well as additional debuff on the boss itself. So we are running like 3 damage dealers, and in this formation right here, by sending OD in, Lily May's repositioning as well as Brian's current positioning will allow all of them to be buffed by Mikola. So this is if your Mikola has enough stats to survive, and in this account my Mikola is strong enough to survive. So let me just level tune Mikola a little bit, okay, so that she's a little bit tankier. So this is at level 700 plus, right, compared to my free-to-play account, because I don't buy that much energy for that account and I didn't progress as far in the AFK stages. But for my main account right here, we are sending OD in, we are letting Lily May stand in front of Mikola, and we are putting Brian all the way in front because Brian also has a second life. And right, this way all 3 units will be able to benefit from the Mikola courage field aura when she casts the ultimate. Okay, so let's start the battle. So this is the magical team. So this is team number 1. Okay, so you guys can see OD, the damage reduction together with Mikola's aura, is able to tank onto the damage. And then, right, you can see that Lily May is being buffed up by the aura of Mikola. Unfortunately, on the very first movement, our dear Brian is not buffed because there's no haste buff on him, but it's fine. Later on, right, Mikola will start to reposition to help break the ice prison, and that's where Brian will get that buff from time to time. So that's the reason why we put her all the way in, put Brian all the way in front, because there's this possibility that he could be buffed. But his main job in the team is for the fractional bonus, for the debuff as well as the additional magical damage, because additional magical damage will proc your arcane spell even more. Because for those of you guys who don't know, okay, so right here we beat our own records, okay, 45 BU. So that's for this team. Okay, so for those of you guys who do not know, Arcane Spell is the brand new artifact that we unlocked this week. So this spell basically allows you to do additional magical damage once your team hit a specific magic damage threshold. So once you hit the 750% of your initial team's damage, you will fire 3 projectile to deal damage and also reduce the target's magical defense. So this is a debuffing as well as a damage dealing tool for you to buff up your team, and the additional stats, especially the defense side, gives your team better survival. Because if you were to use like Tech Core Spell, yes, you get HP, but I think defense is a lot better in reducing damage overall. So that's why you use this one. Obviously, if you don't have these unlocked yet, you can use the likes of Verdant Spell. You can also use the likes of Tech Core Spell, even though Tech Core Spell might not be the best, because Tech Core Spell requires you to spam your ultimate. Against this boss, you don't have that many chance to spam your ultimate, so Tech Core Spell might not be the best, but in most cases, Tech Core Spell is like the better artifact against different bosses, just not this one. So against this boss specifically, I think Verdant Spell, if you don't have Arcane, right? If not, you can try the next build, which is the physical team using the Great Sword Spell. Okay, so Great Sword Spell right here, let's go. So this is the physical team. So this team, comparing the damage to the magical side, is a little bit weaker, because I think the damage output from Lily May and OD is just so good that the physical team, they only have Sinbad being the main carry to sort of give us that physical damage. So we don't have that secondary carry like OD did in this team, unfortunately. So this team features Sinbad as the main carry, and then features Shakir as well as Kruger as the physical debuffer. So let me just find Kruger over here. Okay, so for this physical team right here, let me just reposition. Okay, we reposition ourselves to be like this, and then we're gonna put Kruger in. Where's my Kruger? Okay, over here. Okay, so my Kruger's charm is only at the purple tier. So I think I would definitely get a little bit more damage off Kruger if he gets to the next tier. But comparing the damage between the Arcane Spell Magical team to the Greatsword Spell Physical team, I think the Arcane Spell one is a little bit stronger. And I think it's generally a team where most people will have the units because of Lily May and Odie being the main carry. For this team itself, we are using Sinbad as the carry because Sinbad's ability to debuff the boss allows your team to survive better. And on top of that, being able to be further buffed by the 2 haste buff from Shakir, as well as our dear Mikola, also amps up the damage of Sinbad. So without further ado, let's start the battle. Okay, so for the rest of the Maulers, right, Shakir transforms and then he's less reliant on his skill. Mikola, same thing, casts the ultimate, less reliant on his skill. So you can see Sinbad just slashing really fast because he's buffed by both the haste aura. And then we have Kruger for the physical defense as usual for the physical team. Then we have our dear Reina over here for even more debuff as well as buff protection on Sinbad. So Sinbad is gonna be the one that's permanently being frozen by the boss because he's the main carry of the team. But unfortunately for this team, unlike Odie and Lily May, I think Sinbad's damage output is probably on the level of Lily May in this team, but we don't have another unit to match the damage output of Odie. So therefore, the damage is a little bit lackluster, right? 44 build, pretty decent, right? Same level tuning and stuff, but you can see the damage distribution. So Sinbad right here doing quite a fair bit in the physical team, right? But Sinbad definitely has the potential because you can actually increase his damage output even further if you do get even more haste buff on him. And this team itself, we are also having one unit which deals magical damage, which slows down our Greatsword spell proc, unfortunately. So that's why the damage is a little bit weak. If Reina over here is a physical attacker, I think there is a chance that this team, right, if you have an exact same unit as Reina but is in the physical sense, there's a chance this team is as strong as the magical one. But right now, with my account with the same level tuning, this is the result. So we are about like 2 build in terms of difference. So let me go back into the results to showcase the differences. Okay, so right here, this is the physical one. Okay, and then this is the magical one. Okay, so Sinbad actually does a lot more damage as the single carry, but we don't have this secondary carry of like Odie, for example, to catch up in terms of damage. So Shakir is more of a buffer for the team, and Mikola is obviously the support, so ain't gonna deal as high. And then Kruger over here is not hitting as hard, unfortunately, and because we have a magical attacker, so we lose a little bit of damage, which results in lesser procs for the Greatsword spell, right? Unlike when you go into the Snow Stomper side, right? So right here, we have magical, we have magical, we have magical, we have magical. So we have quite a bit of magical attacker that does quite a bit of damage to prop for the arcane spell more consistently. Okay, so these are the 2 teams that you guys can use for the boss. Now there's another team that you guys can use, which is the hybrid team. So if you don't have Lily May built up, right, you can obviously run this full Mauler team. And I don't think you will actually have issues with surviving if you have both Shakir and Mikola, because this way you got damage reduction and you got heal and you got like range defense. So this you can actually feature Lily May as well. So this is the full aura team. So we're gonna try this and see how it works out for us. Okay, so Lily May together with Odie. I don't need Shakir to be high level, like I mentioned, because he's not like the main carrier of choice. So for this team itself, because we have a mix on both the physical and magical side, although I do think that the magical attackers could still be hitting a lot harder, we're going to try Verdant spell and then we're going to try Arcane spell. Okay, so let's try Verdant spell. So other substitutes for this boss includes other units which are less reliant on their ultimate. So Merrily is one unit you can consider. Another unit is Tamasia. Tamasia is not as reliant on the ultimate, although she would love to. So if you want to build towards a light barrel side, you can. But right now, I think Merrily is relatively underpowered, so I won't actually recommend her. Right, I'll showcase a team with her, but I don't think she would be the recommended. So this is with Verdant spell with this hybrid team setup. Just Shakir providing the aura, Mikola providing the aura with the carrying power of Odie as well as Lily May. Okay, so we are close. We are close. Can we actually even beat our own record? Very, very close. 45 build. Okay, so this is the other team setup that you guys can use. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this team recommendations. So these are the 3 different variations of the team that I'm using, or the team that I'm recommending for the different groups of people depending on who you have. But I think in most cases, Brian as well as Shakir are going to be units that people might not have, right? Or maybe even Sinbad, for example. That in this case, right, you can obviously use Torrent, which is the free to play build. And you can obviously use Coco as well for that damage reduction buff. Slightly less powerful on the offensive side of things, but it's more than sufficient to keep your team alive. So that's for my free to play account side recommendation. And then, right, if you don't have any of these units, which I doubt is the case, because Odie, Lily May, they are the most common units, at least right now in the meta, right? If you don't have any of this, right, the other units of choice that you can actually use for this boss, let me just recommend for you guys. Torrent, number 1, this unit is not that skill reliant and he is able to revive even when global silence. Merrily used to be one of the prime damage dealer for this boss, and this unit actually removes the prison pretty fast as well, but unfortunately she doesn't go really well with Mikola, which is one of the best buffer in the game right now, because she always like jump all over the place, and that's where she might not actually hit that buff, so that's why she fell off a little bit. Like one of the reasons why Merrily fell off was because of Mikola, because of the anti-synergy between the 2 units. And then just now I mentioned Coco, if you need like more survival in case your levels are a little bit too low, but if your levels are strong enough, you can definitely use Coco for this setup. And Tailin is a unit which, despite not being able to cast her ultimate as much, still deals pretty decent damage, although this is probably another unit that I think a lot of people might not have. And Corey is also a decent option, not the best, but decent option if you are planning to use Merrily for your team setup. Okay, so that's pretty much it, just a few recommendations for you guys, and you guys can try and error to see which build gives you the best damage and outcome for your run itself. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. See you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.